Hi guys, welcome to another episode, and you'll have to forgive the additional commentary. It seems someone doesn't like it, and he's likely to make a lot of noise. Anyway, today we're looking at a film called Akira. It's one of my all-time favorite anime movies, and will probably continue to be one of my favorite movies for a long time to come. I first watched this about, what was it, 6 years ago? 7 years ago? And I was actually very lucky because I caught one of those rare. It's very rare that you see anime on TV now, especially here. But I loved the film, and as I say, it's one of my favorites. It was released in 1988 and was written and directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. And if you know the film that I'm talking about, then you'll also know that it's based on Otomo's manga series by the same name. Of course, the manga that the film is based on ran from 1982 to 1990. Everything was when they finally wrapped up the manga. Everything was collected into 6 big books, and it's one of the most, if not the most famous manga that I'm aware of, other than Ghost in the Shell. And in total, the manga series is about 2,000 plus pages in length. So, considering that the film that we're reviewing today had a budget of 1.1 million yen, and that the manga it was based on is over 2,000 pages in length, I think it's safe to say we will have lost a few details. In watching the film, in preparation for this review, I actually had a bit of a realization of sorts. It's not that good, but it's not good, but it's not bad either. It's an odd movie. Let's put it that way. It's something that demands your attention whether you like it or not. The basics, I'm not going to go into like spoiler territory if I can avoid it, but the story basically follows a group of bikers in a cyberpunk dystopian Tokyo, 30 years after World War III, and one of these bikers, Tetsuo Shima, has a near-fatal motorcycle accident, and he survives the accident and soon discovers that he's developed psychic powers. Now the power obviously goes to his head, and he goes on a killing spree, which leaves it up to his childhood friend Kaneda to try and stop him. Now the film is only about, I think, 90 minutes in length, so it's about 90 to 120 minutes in length, hour and a half to 2 hours, and yeah, this is where the problems start. The premise is basic, but it works. I just wish it was more coherent. If I had a problem with the film, it would be definitely how incoherent the film is. I've seen the film multiple times. I've loved every viewing, but over the last couple of times that I've watched it, I've started to sort of realize that there are a lot of unanswered questions. For example, why are the people protesting? We start off with the bikers and everything, and we get like occasional glimpses, but something is happening and then something else happens and there's no explanation for it at all. You see scenes of people rioting right at the start of the film, but there's no sort of explanation on why they're protesting. What are they protesting against? They are listed, or it's said at one point later on in the film that they're anti-government protesters, but why are they anti-government protesters in the first place? What are they protesting against? The other thing that they don't really explain very well is who and what Akira actually is. There is frequent reference to this Akira project, and it's never explained. They don't actually go into detail and say, this is what the project is, this is how it works, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is why we're being so careful. The three psychic children, there are three psychic children in the film who actually look like they've aged prematurely because of their powers. They literally look like they belong in an old age home or something like that, and it's odd because they're obviously children, but and the only answer I can really come up with is the fact that because they're psychic, whenever they use their abilities, it kind of causes them to age prematurely. Well, sort of. Now, the psychic powers thing is also not really explained very well. It's hinted that it was part of some sort of military project, and that Akira was apparently the first one in the group to end up like that, to be experimented on. And that's the other thing. The project, this Akira project, is apparently a super secret military operation. So why is there a cult, a religious cult, centered around Akira? Why? It makes no sense. There's no explanations for this at all. And we kind of have to just sort of grind our teeth and say, well, gossip? I don't know how they thought this would be a bad idea, but at the same time, if you're going to have a religious cult centered around this all-powerful being, this all-powerful thing called Akira, then you have to explain how they know that Akira exists. The one other question that I had in regards to the psychic powers and how they worked was, why did the military experiment with psychic abilities in the first place, and how did they know that they can control those abilities? It's explained later on that they're using drugs to sort of inhibit these abilities, but it's more like a throwaway thing, you know. In terms of thematic material, the only theme that they really follow through on is drug dependency, and that's, I think, very well done, personally speaking, because the whole idea of having to use special medicines to inhibit psychic abilities and to make it easier for the user to keep those abilities under control, it kind of gives you this idea that, okay, if they don't take the medication, if they don't take this drug, that their psychic abilities will kill them, because that's essentially, that's how it came across to me. Was the guy was saying, okay, well, you have to do this or you're going to die. It's as simple as that. So with all of these problems, and the worst problem, the big migraine-inducing question on how the psychic powers works, where did they come from, or how did you end up with them in the first place? The film goes on this long, sort of 2.5 to 3 minute scene, I think, where one character starts explaining that, Akira is this ultimate energy, and it goes back, way back. She starts talking about how humans do all kinds of things in their lifetimes. They build houses and trains and bridges and cities and rockets and that kind of stuff. And that all of this knowledge and energy comes from somewhere. That we don't just get it. Now, the knowledge part, you're looking at what other people have done and you're learning from it, right? But what she says is that essentially all of that knowledge and energy, she then goes on to say, oh, well, we were once like monkeys. Humans were once like monkeys. And then before that, fish and reptiles. And then before those, plankton and amoebas. And maybe before that, we were something else. And she goes on and on and on, chattering about how, maybe everybody shares in these ancient memories or this ancient energy. And, oh god, I'm getting a headache just talking about it. The shorthand version is that basically energy was passed on from one life form to the other throughout the ages until we evolved into humans. Oh god, even that doesn't make any sense. Ow. Ow, my brain. Ow. But this whole scene is just, to me, it's just pointless, because as soon as she mentions plankton and amoebas, you know that you're not really in scientific territory anymore. There's no actual scientific build-up. There's no sort of real explanations on how it originated or where it came from. So it requires quite a suspension of disbelief. But that's not even the worst part of it, because she goes on to, as soon as she's done with that, she goes on with one of the psychic children possessing her somehow through her clairvoyance or some such, to explain that the military at one point tried to harness this ultimate energy, but it wasn't. But it went wrong. The shorthand version, again, the shorthand version is that the military tried to use this energy for whatever purpose, and because they were messing around with something they didn't understand, it blew up in their faces, literally, and triggered the cataclysm that started World War III. And I mean, it's a lot simpler if I gave you the shorthand explanation. The explanation the film gives is another very long-winded, convoluted, and confusing mess of just gibberish. It makes no sense. If you watch that scene repeatedly, you're going to give yourself a headache, big time. But in spite of that, I still really like the film. The animation is actually pretty good. The animation, the action scenes, and even just the sort of backgrounds, all animated really well. The art style is just beautiful, and it holds up really, really well. In terms of, okay, it's a film from the 80s, and I mean, the film was released in 1988, and the few other films that I've seen from that, animated movies that I've seen from that particular time period, they don't hold up very well. They aged very badly. But Akira seems to have been pretty solid. The only real problem I have is that the story is so weak and so full of plot holes. Subplots are introduced, but then swiftly abandoned. There's this whole thing about the political side of things and how the bureaucrats are running everything and how they don't understand anything anymore. And the power's gone to their heads and such. But that subplot is never expanded on or explained. At least not as far as I'm aware. Would I recommend the film? It's a tricky question to answer. If you're an anime fan and you've seen some pretty weird stuff before, and you're sort of into the sci-fi genre and you're into cyberpunk stuff, and you don't mind some gross out visuals, go ahead. Really, honestly, go ahead, check it out. Honestly, you could probably check it out if you weren't an anime fan as well. Just as a simple action movie, it's okay if you're considering it just as an action movie. But I don't know how you would recommend this. I would recommend it to non-anime fans as a simple action movie. It's an anime action movie. It's something different. Go and enjoy, right? If you're squeamish, for anyone who's really squeamish, and I know I was very squeamish the first time I watched this movie. There were some scenes that really grossed me out. But yeah, if you're very squeamish, then you might want to actually just give this one a pass. Check it out anyway. You can check it out anyway. But you might consider passing on this one and going to find something else that's a little bit more suited to your tastes. Again, this was based purely on my preferences. I am a very biased person. I have very particular tastes, and that's partly why I don't recommend anime titles very often, because not everybody shares in that particular tastes. So, would I recommend the film? Yes and no. If you're an anime fan or even a non-anime fan and you're into sci-fi or you're looking for something different and you don't mind some gross out visuals, go ahead. If you're a very squeamish person who's looking for something different, I would recommend that you actually give this one a pass. Unless you feel like you can handle it, then by all means go ahead. But if you think, oh well, it's a kids film, it's not a kids movie. If I had to recommend this to an audience, I would rather recommend it to sort of 16 and older would be a good age range, I think. I've heard of copies of this that have been actually rated PG-13, but I don't think that's actually I think that's actually just a rumor. I haven't seen a copy of this film online or on a ratings site anywhere where they don't have at least a 16 or an R rating or even an NC-17 rating on the review profile. So yeah, if you think this is a kids movie, you'd be sadly mistaken. This is definitely not a kids movie. If you have kids and they want to watch it, then I would suggest you actually watch with them, because it does raise a lot of it does open a lot of topics for some very interesting family discussions. I mean, you can talk about how is what the military doing right? Is the whole drug dependency thing good or bad, and why? Is the political situation, I mean, I know it's not really put in there very well, but you can sort of talk about why everybody's protesting against the government and what the religious cult's purpose is and so on. And so yeah, there are a couple of very interesting discussions that you could have if you have kids and you show this to them or you watch this with them. But I wouldn't advise allowing a kid younger than, say, 15 or 16 to watch this movie alone, at least. At least not the first time. If you've seen it once, then it's fine. Anyway, that was my review. Looking back, it's definitely a flawed movie. The story is very weak, and so full of plot holes you could probably drive a cruise liner through them. But on the whole, it's a pretty good movie. The action scenes are really solid. The animation is beautiful. It holds up really well. The music and pacing are okay. The music is a little bit overblown. But for the most part, everything holds up pretty well, in the end, I guess it all depends on your perspective and on whether or not you want to try something along the lines of this movie. So I think I'm just going to leave it there. If you guys have seen the film, then let me know what you thought of it in the comments section. And yeah, I will be back with another review pretty soon. I'm not entirely sure when, but I will be back with another review pretty soon. As always, if you have an anime movie that you want me to review or to look at, or you want me to do a top 10 list or something like that, basically any anime themed videos, reviews, lists, editorial ideas, yeah, leave them in the comments section, and I'll take a look and see what I can do. And until, I guess that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed filming it and I loved rewatching Akira for this review. I loved putting this video together, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers, guys.